All right. Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Um, Today, we're going to be looking at something
Okay.
that I think a lot of people can relate to.
Right.
We're going to be talking about how approaching coding is a lot like fitness training.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the inspiration for this deep dive is an article from the Algo Academy blog called Why Coding is Like Fitness Training, Consistency Over Intensity.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah. Have you read it?
I have. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and one of the things I really liked about it
Okay.
is how it kind of debunks this myth of the coding genius.
Oh, yeah, right.
You know, like these people who just are born to code.
Yeah, like they can just stay up all night and produce some amazing program or something.
Exactly. And, it can be really intimidating,
Oh, for sure.
especially when you're first starting out.
Absolutely.
You kind of feel this pressure to be some sort of prodigy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I think this article does a really good job of emphasizing that it's not about some, innate genius that you're born with. It's really about consistent practice.
Absolutely.
And that's what really drives success in programming.
Yeah, and it really uses that fitness analogy well,
Yes.
to explain how those regular focused coding sessions,
Yeah.
even if they're short, they're so much more beneficial than just these sporadic all-nighters,
Right.
like you're not gonna.
Like you think about it, like building muscle memory, you wouldn't go to the gym and your first day try to bench press your max weight or something, right?
Exactly.
You're going to build up to it.
Yeah, and that's something that I definitely learned the hard way when I was first learning Python.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I tried to cram everything into a few intense weekends,
Oh, wow.
thinking that I could just, power through it.
Yeah.
But I ended up just feeling completely exhausted.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't really retain that much information.
Right.
So, yeah, looking back, I definitely wish I had taken a more consistent approach. Well, and that's, like you were saying, that's a really common mistake.
Yeah.
And the article actually compares those intense coding sprints to crash diets,
Oh, yeah.
where they might seem tempting in the moment to get those quick results.
Right.
But they're really not sustainable and often lead to burnout.
Yeah. And speaking of burnout,
Mm-hmm.
have you ever hit a coding plateau?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Like where you just feel like you're stuck
totally.
and you're not making any progress?
Yeah, definitely. It's super frustrating.
Yeah, I definitely experienced that too, especially when I was trying to learn dynamic programming.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It's a tough concept,
Yeah.
and I remember just feeling so discouraged because
Right.
no matter how much time I spent on it,
Yeah.
I just couldn't seem to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, in the article, it talks about how important rest and recovery are.
Okay.
And I think that's something that we often overlook.
Yeah, especially in the coding world.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's like we think we have to be coding all the time to make progress, but, you wouldn't go to the gym every single day and just
Yeah.
lift weights constantly without giving your muscles time to repair.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that instead of burning ourselves out with these endless coding marathons, we should aim for more of a sustainable pace.
Right. Exactly.
Maybe dedicating a specific time each day to coding,
Yeah.
like a daily workout routine.
Exactly. It's about building that coding habit just like you would build any other habit.
Okay.
The article suggests creating a coding schedule.
Right.
So, just like you might schedule your gym sessions.
Okay.
You could schedule, 30 minutes in the morning before work or an hour after dinner.
Nice.
Whatever fits into your lifestyle.
So you're saying that consistency is really key.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what about hackathons? You think those are beneficial?
That's a good question.
Because it seems like they kind of force you to learn really quickly.
Right. Yeah. They can be great for motivation and collaboration for sure.
Yeah.
But I think the article argues that you shouldn't make them your primary learning method.
Okay.
Because relying solely on those bursts of intense coding can actually hinder your long-term growth.
I see.
And, it can lead to inconsistent skill development.
All right, so we've talked about the importance of consistency,
Right.
but how do we actually make that a reality in our busy lives?
Yeah, that's the real challenge, right?
Yeah, what are some practical strategies that we can use to integrate consistent coding practice?
Well, the article has a few ideas that I found really helpful.
Okay.
One of them is using the don't break the chain method.
Don't break the chain.
Have
Okay.
you heard of that?
I have, yeah, where you basically mark off each day on a calendar
Yeah, exactly.
that you code.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've tried that before.
Yeah. And it's so helpful because it's like a visual reminder to stay on track.
Yeah,
And it kind of gamifies the process a little bit.
exactly. You don't want to break that streak. I've also found that joining a coding community can be really motivating.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like having a gym buddy,
Right.
who keeps you accountable and celebrates your wins with you.
Yeah, and it gives you that sense of community.
Yeah.
You can share your struggles,
Yeah.
learn from other people's experiences,
Yeah.
even collaborate on projects.
I remember when I was trying to build my first web app with React,
Uh-huh.
I was about ready to give up.
Oh, wow.
But then I joined an online coding community,
Yeah.
and it was like a game changer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just having that support system,
Yeah. Yeah.
and being able to bounce ideas off of other developers really helped me push through.
Yeah. That's a great example of how powerful that community aspect can be.
Definitely.
It's not just about the technical skills, but it's about the mindset
Right.
and the support network that you build along the way.
Exactly. All right. So it sounds like we've got a pretty good foundation here.
Yeah, I think so.
We've talked about the myth of the coding genius,
Right?
the importance of consistency over intensity,
Yeah.
and some practical strategies for making consistent coding a reality.
Absolutely.
So I think we're ready to dive a little deeper
Okay, sounds good.
and explore some of the other ways that coding is like fitness training.
All right, I'm ready. Okay, so we've talked a lot about consistency.
We have.
But how do we actually measure our progress in coding?
That's a good question. Like, it's not like fitness where we can track like our reps or miles or anything.
Right, exactly. It's a lot less tangible.
Yeah.
But the article actually suggests that we can track our coding progress using metrics,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
just like we track our fitness goals.
Okay, I like that. So give me an example.
Like, what kind of metrics are we talking about here?
Yeah, what kind of metrics can we use to track our coding journey?
Well, there are some that are more platform specific.
Okay.
Like, if you're using a platform like Academy, you can track the number of coding challenges that you've completed.
Right.
Or on GitHub, you can see the number of projects that you've contributed to.
Okay. And I get to see how tracking those milestones could be
Mhm.
really motivating.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of like leveling up in a game.
Right. Yeah. Like you can actually see your progress.
Yeah, and then there are also more personal metrics that you can track,
Okay.
like maybe your daily coding streaks
Mm.
or the number of like complex problems that you've solved.
Okay. So it's about finding what works for you.
Exactly.
Okay. I like that.
That's about finding what resonates with you and what helps you visualize that progress.
I've always struggled with staying motivated,
Oh, yeah.
especially when I hit those inevitable coding
Yeah.
roadblocks.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, everyone does.
How have you dealt with that?
Yeah, well, one thing that's helped me is focusing more on the process rather than the outcome.
Okay.
So instead of getting discouraged, when I can't solve a problem immediately,
Right.
I try to celebrate those small victories along the way,
I see.
like understanding a new concept or debugging a tricky piece of code.
So it's like shifting your mindset from, I need to solve this problem,
Yeah,
to I'm learning something new with each attempt.
precisely.
Okay.
And I think that shift in perspective can really help. It's about embracing that learning process and finding satisfaction in the journey itself.
Yeah. That's really helpful.
Building that consistency really helps you stay motivated even when you encounter those setbacks.
All right. So we've talked about metrics and mindset.
Right.
But the article also talks about this concept of progressive overload
Yes.
from fitness training
Okay.
and how it can be applied to coding.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. So in fitness, progressive overload is basically the idea that you gradually increase the weight or resistance that you're lifting
Okay.
as you get stronger.
Right.
And in coding, it's very similar.
Okay.
It's about gradually increasing the complexity of your coding challenges as your skills improve.
Okay. So instead of always staying in your comfort zone,
Right.
you need to push yourself to tackle those problems that are a little bit beyond your current abilities.
Exactly. And it might feel a little bit uncomfortable at first,
Right.
but that's how you grow.
Yeah. So how do we determine the right level of coding weight to lift?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It seems like it could be tricky.
It definitely requires some self-awareness
Yeah.
and
yeah.
some experimentation.
Okay.
Start by identifying your current skill level
Right.
and then seek out challenges that stretch your abilities without feeling completely out of reach.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, and it might take some trial and error
Sure.
to find that sweet spot.
Right. So can you give me some concrete examples?
Like, of how to apply progressive overload in coding.
Yeah, like what does that actually look like?
Okay, so let's say you're learning a new programming language,
Okay.
like JavaScript, for
Yeah.
example.
All right.
You might start with some really simple exercises that focus on the basic syntax and data types.
Okay.
But as you become more comfortable, you can gradually increase the complexity
Okay.
by tackling problems that involve loops and conditional statements and functions.
I see.
And eventually you'll be building, full-fledged web applications.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like starting with body weight exercises
Right.
and then gradually adding weights or resistance as you get stronger.
Right. It's the same concept.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
all about progressively challenging yourself to keep those coding muscles growing.
I like that. All right. So we've talked about progressive overload,
Yeah.
but the article also emphasizes the importance of writing clean and readable code.
Oh, absolutely. That's crucial.
Yeah. It's not just about getting the code to work,
Right.
but it's also about making it elegant and maintainable.
Exactly. And that's something that I think is often overlooked.
Yeah, especially by beginners.
Yes, especially when you're just starting out, you're so focused on just getting the code to work
Right.
that you don't necessarily think about how readable it is or how easy it will be to maintain in the future.
Right. It's like you're just trying to get to the finish line.
Exactly. But think about it this way.
Yeah.
If you were building a house, you wouldn't just want to slap it together as quickly as possible.
Right.
You would want to make sure that the foundation was solid and the walls were straight and the wiring was done properly.
Of course.
Uh-huh.
A well-built house is going to be safer and more efficient and more enjoyable to live in.
Exactly.
Great.
And the same goes for code.
Okay.
Well-written code is easier to debug,
Right.
it's easier to modify,
Yeah.
and it's easier to collaborate on.
Okay.
And it's also less prone to errors and more likely to be reusable in the future.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So how can we improve our form, so to speak, and write cleaner, more readable code?
Yeah, so the article actually gives a few tips for this.
Okay.
One of the most important ones is to familiarize yourself with the coding conventions and best practices
Right.
for the specific language that you're using.
Okay.
So, for example, using meaningful variable names and adding clear comments to your code.
Like labeling your storage boxes so you know what's inside without having to open them all.
Exactly. It makes
Yeah.
it so much easier for you and for anyone else who might be reading your code.
Right. And another thing that I've learned is to pay attention to code indentation and spacing.
Oh, absolutely. That's huge.
Like proper indentation just makes the code visually appealing and easier to follow.
Yes, it's like organizing your belongings neatly so you can find things easily.
Yeah. And I've definitely been guilty of neglecting indentation in the past,
Oh, yeah, me too.
especially when I'm like rushing to get something working.
Right.
But I've realized that taking that extra time to format the code properly actually saves me time in the long run
Well,
because it makes it so much easier to understand and debug later on.
it's an investment in the future maintainability of your code.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about coding conventions and indentation,
Great.
but what about code reviews?
Oh, yeah. Code reviews are so valuable.
Yeah, have you found them to be helpful?
Absolutely. Having other programmers look over your code
Yeah.
and provide feedback can be incredibly helpful in
Right.
identifying areas where you can improve your style and ensure that you're adhering to best practices.
It's like having a fresh pair of eyes
Yes, exactly.
to spot those inconsistencies and suggest alternative approaches.
Right. They can see things that you might have missed.
Yeah, and I found that code reviews have been instrumental in helping me develop good coding habits
Yeah, me too.
and elevate the quality of my work.
They can be really invaluable for learning and growth.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
but there's one more thing that I want to touch on,
Okay.
and that's plateaus.
Oh, yeah, plateaus. Those are the worst.
Yeah, those moments when you feel like you're just banging your head against a wall
Right?
and you're not making any progress, no matter how much effort you put in.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah, and it can be really discouraging.
Absolutely. It can be really discouraging.
Yeah. So what do we do when we find ourselves in one of those coding ruts?
Yeah, that's a great question.
What does the article suggest for overcoming those plateaus?
Well, it actually offers a few practical strategies that can help you kind of break through those barriers.
Sure.
One suggestion is to reassess your learning routine.
Okay.
Maybe you've been focusing on the same types of problems or using the same learning resources for too long.
Right.
It's like hitting the gym and doing the same workout every day.
Yeah.
Eventually, your body kind of adapts and you stop seeing results.
That's a great analogy.
Hmm.
It's easy to get stuck in a rut without even realizing it.
Exactly.
So how do we shake things up and keep our coding muscles guessing.
Well, the article recommends diversifying your coding workouts.
Okay.
So, explore different areas of coding, experiment with new languages or frameworks, or tackle different types of challenges.
So it's like cross-training in fitness.
Exactly.
You're challenging yourself in new ways and preventing stagnation.
Right. And, don't be afraid to seek out challenges that push you a little bit outside of your comfort zone. If you're feeling stuck, it might be because you're not pushing yourself hard enough.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Look for coding problems or projects that are slightly more difficult than what you're used to.
I've heard that getting involved in open source projects can be a good way to do that
Oh, absolutely.
and collaborate with other developers.
Yeah, open source projects are fantastic.
Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, definitely. They offer a great opportunity to work on real-world code bases.
Yeah.
You can learn from experienced developers
Right.
and contribute to something meaningful.
It's like joining a team of athletes who are all training for the same goal.
Exactly.
You can learn from each other, motivate each other, and celebrate each other's successes.
That's a great way to put it.
Now, let's be honest. Coding can be a tough field to break into.
Yeah, it can be intimidating for sure.
It's easy to feel intimidated by the sheer volume of information out there
Right.
and the perception that everyone else is like a coding whiz.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in that comparison game.
Yeah, imposter syndrome is real.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think a lot of coders, myself included, have battled with it at some point.
Definitely.
What advice would you give to those who are struggling with those feelings of inadequacy?
Well, I think the most important thing is to be kind to yourself.
Okay.
Remember that everyone learns at their own pace,
Right.
and there's no shame in struggling or making mistakes.
That's true.
Celebrate your progress no matter how small it is,
Yeah.
and focus on your own journey rather than comparing yourself to others.
That's so important,
Yeah.
especially in the age of social media where everyone seems to be showcasing their highlight reels.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in that and feel like you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
But you have to remember that you're on a unique journey,
Right.
and your progress is valid regardless of how it compares to others.
And don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it.
Oh, absolutely.
There are so many resources available to coders.
Yeah.
Online forums, coding communities, mentorship programs.
And those resources can be lifesavers.
Yeah.
Connecting with other coders and seeking guidance from those who have been there before
Right.
can provide invaluable support and encouragement.
It's like having a personal trainer or a coach who can guide you and provide feedback and help you stay on track.
Exactly.
So the article also emphasizes these long-term benefits of consistent coding practice beyond just technical proficiency.
Right. It's not just about the code itself.
Yeah. Talks about developing valuable life skills,
Absolutely.
expanding career opportunities, and just like unlocking your creative potential.
Coding can really help you develop those problem-solving abilities,
Yeah.
enhance your critical thinking skills, and foster a growth mindset.
Right. And those skills extend far beyond the realm of coding.
Absolutely. They can benefit you in countless aspects of your life.
It's like building a mental toolkit that you can use to tackle any challenge,
Exactly.
whether it's a complex coding problem or a real-life dilemma.
And the more you practice, the more confident and capable you become in using those tools to solve problems and create innovative solutions.
Yeah, to bring it all back to this idea of approaching coding, like fitness training,
Yeah.
it sounds like the key takeaway here is that consistency, dedication, and a growth mindset are really the ingredients for long-term success.
I completely agree.
It's not about being a coding prodigy overnight,
Right?
but it's about embracing the process, putting in the work, and celebrating the journey along the way.
And just like in fitness, where you see those gradual improvements in your strength and stamina over time,
Right.
in coding, you'll witness your skills and understanding kind of evolve with each line of code you write and each problem you solve.
And that's incredibly rewarding to look back and see how far you've come.
Absolutely. And that sense of accomplishment fuels your passion and drives you to keep learning and growing.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect note to end on.
I agree.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into the world of coding
It has.
and the transformative power of consistency.
I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Me too.
It's always inspiring to discuss the importance of mindset and the incredible potential that lies within each of us.
A huge thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey.
Yes, thank you for listening.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights and are feeling motivated to embrace consistency in your own coding adventures.
And remember, the Algo Academy blog is a fantastic resource for articles, tutorials, and inspiration to support your coding journey.
So until next time, happy coding.